Hey, and thanks for tuning in for my live stream. Was waiting for PHPstorm to finish doing some indexing, but that is taking longer than I thought, so I popped on. So for today's live development stream, I'm gonna work on some follow-ups to a phpstan-drupal release I put out last week. Um, Provided some type hints for field item list, or not type hints, a stub, but that caused some regression errors, and I would like to figure out how to get the CI to test this appropriately. Because this seems to happen where I add stubs, and with PHPstan, when you add stubs, you need to stub out all dependencies as well, class dependencies, that is. And our CI never fails, but it ends up when people use it, so I'd like to figure that out. And then there's an issue with the type specifying extension for query access checks that is causing PHP stand strict rules to fail by saying with false will always evaluate to true. And that's because it allows accepting a value. I don't know why it's saying always evaluates to true when it returns something else, but that needs to get dove into as well. But the main one will be fixing the stub and see if this is finished. Not yet. We'll just let it run in the back end. So I'm going to go ahead and get started the branch for this. So get new branch, GitHub 509. Hi, Translactor. Thanks for joining. All right. So we have this here. Let's go to the actual stub, which would be in. Let me. So in stubs, Drupal, what was it? Core, field. We have field item list, which I think I already see one of the bugs where this extends item list. That's one error. Extends unknown class item list in the stub. So let's actually fix that first. So this says that it's core type data plugin. I had to do this a whole bunch too. Plugin data type item list. So let's create a new file called itemlist.stub. And stubs are just skeleton files of actual code that PHPstan reads to that it reads to take PHP annotations from, like PHP doc annotations from, to enhance its analysis. So that means I need to go into find the original code and copy the bare minimum. So that's core type data, plugin, data type, item list. So it should be just as easy as come up here, we copy all this, and then delete this document block. Although actually, shoot, before I did this, I wanted to write a test. So we'll leave it here. Shoot, I wanted to write the test first. So I'll make a scratch for it. And we'll delete this for now. So I want to find out how to test this to prevent it from happening again. And to do that, let's go look at PHPstan, the source of PHPstan, or I know I looked at the Laravel repo before, and I didn't see anything around testing stubs. Unit, reflection, type, general type, data, collection, return type extension, integration test. Yeah, that's not it. So I want to see if I can find something in PHPstan that tests its own stubs to find this problem. And also, I'm going to review some of the tests. So additional config files trait, Drupal rule test case. Okay, so this pulls in this configuration file. which includes the plugin itself. So like these should, that's the part I don't understand, is it's technically loaded and included. Because inside the extension, we have the stub provider. So this should be loaded, but when running tests and doing tests and when analyzing, this never works. It doesn't get caught. And I'm not sure why. So I'm going to see if I can discern that from the phpstan code base. It would be under types, I think. Generic. No. Let's see. Test rules reflection. Parser. No. Oh. That's just going to find. So right, search for stub really quick. Yeah, unfortunately, this is going to... Well, here we go. Levels, data, stub, methods. No, that's going to be actual stub. Stub validator. All right. Ah, this looks promising. So, stub validator, we have a... How is this used? Stub source locate factory. Reflection provider. All right, check this only. Where is this used? Let's see if I can find it in the source code. Let's expand the far and we'll search. Nothing found. So it's not even in the, because it's in the, oh no, here it is. So config neon. This has to be included somewhere, but I'm not seeing where. So let's look in this repository. But the good news is that means one of these can be used, such as the stub source locator factory, or stub reflector, or stub source locator. Actually, I think it would be this one. We should be able to replicate and test any errors. So let's go ahead and stub out a test. These are under reflection, PHP doc. I'm just going to put under, I'm going to say stub test. I don't know. Call it a stub test for now until I can come up with a better name and just try to get this to run and return any errors. Namespace. What do I have this namespace as? So final class stub test extends. How do we have Drupal autoloading test run against Drupal rule test case? That's a dummy rule. Actually, that is what we have to do. We need to use like a dummy rule to... No. Drupal test case. Just test case. All right. I actually don't know, so I'm going to wait to see. So wait. We cannot find matching code. Maybe as I have the... Let's remove the .neon. PHP doc stub validator. Okay, so the stub validator loads it in. So it validates and arrays stub file. So this would be, it could be a generic. Could be a generic test, but it'd be nice just to have to find out where how phpstan tests this as well. So if it's in the source PHP doc namespace, so the test should match that. same namespace. So PHP stan, PHP doc. Nope. Let's look for usages of it. No, not all of GitHub. This repo. Test stub. Ah, here we go. That looks like it should be it. No, here it is. A stub levels integration test, which get additional analyze files, get topics, levels. What does this level test case do? Where does it come from? Testing levels test case. Let's extend that and see what happens. All right, levels test case. Okay, so it tests different levels. This is not what we want to do. So data topic stub validator. No. All right, so we're just gonna have to test. Stub test extends test case. We'll just extend the test case and build it on our own, which is what's going on in here. So let's do a public function test valid void. Although Drupal test case, no. How do we type in Fern's test case? No. I want to see PHP stan. Okay, that's what I want. I'm gonna extend the PHP stan test case. And we use the additional config trait. So this loads in that trait again loads in the ability to have our extension and PHP stan configurations in our tests. So setup extension, this test this method. Okay. So test valid. So now we should be able to access the service container. So we should be able to do get container, get service, stub validator class, which I'm going to see if I can find anything about this usage. And here, stub validator, so that's the class, analyze application. Again, just has a stub validator there. So validate, but I do need to look at this part because you have to get this project stub file somehow. So stub files provider. All right, so we needed to do that code and this code. Say that debug is true. So the validator would be this call here. Self cert equals, I have no idea here. So the main goal is like write a test, get it hopefully running and see what happens. So stub files provider is this self get container, get service. Might need to use default stub provider. But we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to run this and see how it explodes in my face or not. Hopefully it just works. Or at least by works, I mean it gives us an error. All right, got to rerun. All right. Stub files provider not found. That's because in conf, this is it's not registered. So auto wired. So it's auto wired in here with that. Okay, well, it's not being picked. So the auto wire is on the interface, but this is the service name. So let's use default. So if our test was if we had a service that was auto wired, it would work. But this should do it. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit with some line breaks. Hey, thanks for tuning in. All right, service. Oh no, not found. Okay, where is it registered? It's in config neon. PHP. Oh, why? It's a service. Why can't I get this to work? All right. I'm gonna reference. It's been a while since I've done this or something similar. So let's look at these rules. So this create reflection provider. How does this do this? Oh, get by type. That's what I need. Get by type. And that's when we could do the service or the interface rather, because it's get by type, not get by service. phpstan uses the nut framework, whereas I'm used to working with Symfony, which is there's just get. Where there's just the get method, and that could either be the class name or whatever, or like the machine name for it. Which here, yeah, so there's get service, returns mixed, and get type. I'm guessing this is if you have a named service rather. All right, so this returned wrong tab. This returned 1, 2, 3, 4 errors, which is about right. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's really 5. Oh, 1, 2, yeah, yep, because this specifies types T. So that's great. That means that we now will have stub validation. But what we need to do is make this easily comparable. Let's remove that breakpoint. It'll randomly show up. So it's JSON serializable. So let's go ahead and to do our comparison, we're going to map it. Static and error. And it would help if I actually wrap that in an array map instead of just typing it out. Okay, so there's my array map. So I'm using the shorthand closure available with like PHP 8. Yeah, I think that was 8, not just 8.1. And saying take all the stub errors, JSON serialize them so we can just do an array comparison. And I should see that the errors are all the same. Same as the reported issue. All right, well, that says there's 4 errors. Let's do a var export. Let's move this up because I'm going to reuse it. Errors as array. So we're going to put that here because I want to dump it as a debugging statement because ideally there would be no errors. But since there are, I want to see what they are and validate. So this is a common trick you can do. Oops. That's going to break horribly. Hold on. Once again, I forgot to put it in array map. Okay. So with your tests, all PHP unit or assertions have a, there's like, let's say expected, actual, and then message. So you can do var export with return true. That will allow it to be like the export saved as a string. So here we go, where we have the errors here. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up as a test first, and then add the stub, validate that, and then work on the generics for specifying its type of T. So git add tests, git commits. All right, so add stub validation test. Origin GitHub 509. And pr create. So add stub validation test, fix stubs, expand the title a bit. This fixes 509. Submit. And we'll let that run, and it's going to show that it fails. So let's go ahead and try the fix. So now we had to go into, should have just kept the file. Data type, we need item list dot stub. Add it. We're going to copy this. So let's run the test now, and we should be reduced some errors, or maybe we're missing some here, like list interface. No, we have list interface. So I think we have all we need. All right, so 0, 1, no. Oh, geez. Okay, so it implements iterator aggregate, but doesn't specify its generic types. Oh, excuse me. So we need to go and decorate this a bit more. So I'm going to search into stubs to see if we've done this, because there we go. Can never remember the exact format, but it's not string. So item list and extends type data interface, list interface. Yeah, extends array access int. So it is traversable on int. Interface T, no, T of type template, T of type data interface. Sure, why don't we, no, hold on. Yeah, item list, let's copy this over. Template of T implements, we'll say that it is T. And we'll probably still have a similar error that's going to bubble up now to field item list, because it's going to say that we don't implement. Okay, let's see. Item list implements generic interface, but does not specify its types of T. Well, yes, it does. It's so implements generic interface. List interface, but does not specify its types of T. Okay, now I get it. It's just, again, I'm going to double check. Actions traversable, extends, field item interface, entity reference T. Extends, there we go. Which actually, hold on. Yeah, item list. Yep, so extend that with T. To be honest, a lot of this stuff like with generics and the templates kind of just whooshes over my head a little bit, and I'm still getting a grasp of it. Okay, hold on. Item list, the extends tag of implements. Implements. Let's try that. Describes this interface, but the class extends. Yeah, okay. So I think wherever I found it, where it said it extended something. No. Wait. Field item list extends generic class type item list, but does not specify its types of T. Great. So if we go to field item list, we're going to paste the template, what the template is, and the template is field item interface. So let's run that. So this ends up like further down and just saying that, yep, for this class, the template of T is field item interface. Whereas further down the stack, it's, it overrides it. But let's see. Field item list extends generic class item list, but does not specify its types T. So is this where it extends? When you say it extends item list with T of that. I've read the docs on this too, and I don't know. I feel like it's one of those, like, when you work with it enough, it starts to make sense. And I guess even if you do a lot of TypeScript, I feel like you have to do your like generics mapping, and some people get it, but it is not sticking for me yet. But it's not specified types T because do I have to do this for each definition? Okay. Oh yeah. Implements. I mean, the good part is that we have the test for it now. Which, yep, that failed. So extends generic class, but did not specify type T. All right, so shoot. I think we need to have both. I'm going to see what happens. I wish it could somehow be inferred. Like, it knows it extends item list, it knows this, and overrode the template type. And maybe that's in the docs. But we have a new issue, at least, or a new error. We got rid of that. This is all set now. This is fine. This needs to be type hinted. Value is mixed. Is nullable and mixed. And now the test's okay. All right. So let's go and push that and have the CI verify. So get status, AV, fix, field item list, stub, and missing item list. Stub, not stub. Stub. All right. So this should make my maintenance life a lot easier too, because now I'm not going to ship broken code or then fret like I had no time since last Wednesday to work on it. Like, this is my this 2 hours is like my free time to work on it. It's not a paid thing. So like now I can feel a little bit more confident about working on it 1 or 2 hours a week and shipping code without having consequences. So that speaks to why even like for like I like having robust CI and test for this for that reason, but that's even why like your work projects need it, because think how much more relaxed you'd be if you don't have to worry about every single change. All right, there's some lint failures, which is to be expected. This one's not a lint though. Yes, it is. So let's look at the main one. Um, stub test. Okay, because I'm calling things not guaranteed by the API, but there is no API item. So you go do, let's first um subfiles provider. I'm just going to split these out so that way on this one line I can do phpstan ignore next line. So that way if anything else changes, but basically these classes aren't under the API promise, so they'll break, but I want to have them be available to make this testable. I could type stub validators. All right, so stub validators to here, and then we'll say phpstan ignore next line. All right, but those are the only two errors. Looks like it, but I'll run it again locally. So the idea is just that I need to allow it, and by spinning those out in one line, if anything were to happen with like this get container or get type, those wouldn't be ignored because they were being treated as one line. Let's go boom. Let's do the get diff real quick. Yep. Ignore. API promise. Warnings for tests. All right, that should be a quick run. So normally if you have this, just run a conflict on the version. Don't try to delete the stub. Although if you really wanted some of the new features, that would be the way to do it. But so while this is running, we'll start reading this one. So this has to do with strict types, or strict rules, not strict types. Excuse me. So I need to check if I even have this package as part of my dev dependency. Strict rules. Okay, so strict rules is in my dev dependencies. So let's go ahead and review them. So this is about returning true. This, like, if it says false, it says it always returns true. So it's about inspecting of the arguments and then the type that's returned. So DPI, removing and commenting out the strict rules config. Yes, but which strict rules do it? We don't know. We'll always evaluate to, let's see if I can find this string. No. Well, now I just believe it's not actually working. So cast method variables functions. No, methods. Wrong case of inherited rule. Does not match. Well, why is nothing showing up? Strict calls false. Okay. Just removing that. But what if we could disallow loose comparisons, booleans and conditions, strict calls, call the method. So we have tests, and it's not found in our tests. So let's look at in the source. So call the method will always evaluate to true. All right, so it's impossible instance of, impossible check, impossible instance, check. Strict comparison, call to method. Okay, impossible check. On that, it would pass when strict rules, when phpstan strict rules is moved from configuration, the rule violation appears to come from else if always check true. Always evaluate to true. All right, so let's see. This is always. What is always? Okay, so type scope node. Always check true. This has got to be a parameter, a service parameter. So let's look at conf. So config neon false. All right. Looks like it is due to, which is activated on level 4. The error goes away when strict rules is disabled, but I'm not even sure how that makes sense. Rules. Oh, because it turns it on by automatically. See, phpstan strict rules enables this flag, which is why it seemed to stop showing up. It enforces this flag regardless your analysis level. All right. Well, I feel better now that I actually know how this is working, because I was sitting here like, why is this possible? But now I can test it. That's the important thing. This is a rule that I can test locally and do some debugging with test-driven development to figure out how we can get this to pass. Because it's going to be tricky. Like it says else if not is always. It's like if always is equal to null. So like find specified type. Yeah, like going into here, and we got to figure out what and how this works. But first, this passed. I'm going to go ahead and merge it. And that will be fixed. Okay. Merged PR fixing these stub files. And now we have a test to validate them to prevent this from happening again. I'll be tagging a new release with this fix shortly. First, I want to get this other thing figured out. All right, one thing done. I feel good. Now on to this one. So this is 508. Let's do get checkout main pull 508. All right, so we have our test here, and again, like the rules aren't part of the API, so there's a few times I do tests in here, like somewhere, where I had to actually call the like a rule from phpstan itself to do the test. Like, where's an example of that even? Rule test. Oh yeah, access deprecated. Nope, that's our own. Nope. Where did we? phpstan, ignore next line. Oh, entity parameter type hint rule. So like in here, we're doing these type hints or validating some of the type hinting and maybe just doing testing the wrong way, but it works. So let's do a shoot. This is going to be entity access, entity query. Where did I make that test even? Rule. Either way, okay, never mind. So the rule, let's do access. Hold on. Let's get the name of the thing. So entity storage, entity query, access type. This is going to be horrible. Test, but what is it actually for? The accessCheck impossible type call rule test. Why not? That's a word salad, but it'll work. So again, I'm going to copy some of the boilerplates. So final class accessCheck extends. So Drupal rule test case. Excuse me. Let's add whatever it needs. What is it? Add method stubs, get rule. So the rule is return new impossible check type method called rule, which needs the impossible check type helper. So that's where we can do the, how do I do self, or rather new, is this an interface? No, it's a class. No context. Can I just do it from, let's do self, get container, get by type. True, check always true reflection type, and true. I think that's. Thank you for the subscription. I appreciate that. Treat PHP docs as certain. False, false, false. Everything's got false there. So I'm going to change mine to false. And actually, I'm going to review. Oh, yeah. So let's go back to the phpstan code base, because I can look up where this is tested at. So what is this? Rules, comparison, impossible rule test. All right, so rules, nope. Comparison, here we go. Impossible check type, function, method, rule call test, boom. So I guess actually, let's just copy this, replace it here. This treat PHP docs types as certain equals true. False. I'm just going to leave it as false for now. So there's our test there, but it's going to, I know it's going to complain about, then ignore next line and run it here as well, because it will complain about it being not part of the API. So test rule. What do we do? Let's analyze. So let's create a data fixture, or whether $500. No, that's okay. 496 is perfect for it. So what is it? This analyze directory data 4936, and we want no errors. So let's run the test and see what happens. If I can click correctly. So let's jump back to this test fixture. So this is a fixture for when it's non-chained, and this is what I fixed last week. Last week was fixing the fact that this wasn't working correctly. The only problem is, I don't know if this is one that's flagging an error, but we'll find out. Fail to string that two strings are identical. I guess it worked. So joy. Fun. So now we get to find out why. So let's dig in to right here, because I don't know how this is actually working. So let's go back to run and test rule, and we're going to debug it, because I don't know how any of this works. I've never had to debug this part before. So it's time to go exploring. I know a lot of people, some people are like, oh, you don't need a step debugger, and some people are like, there's no way to debug without. I honestly will do a mixed bag. But having a step debugger, like using Xdebug to just go through how something's running, is invaluable with complex projects. Like phpstan, I can't read any of this code and know what's happening. It is just, there's too much. It's very complex, but by having Xdebug, I can pause and I can step through and I can see how it's working. Oh, thanks for, so you're watching from Nicaragua. Awesome. Watching videos YouTube. Twitch is better. Yeah. I'm not good at pre-recording things, so I like to do the live stream. And I just like doing the live stream a lot more. Getting feedback from people and diving into stuff. All right, so this stopped. So our node, I just want to review the node. So node, accessCheck. This is exactly what we need to dive into. Now, only thing I want to check. So this is the node, but I want to look at the scope. Resolve types, query. Okay, so here we go. Query is content entity type query of accessCheck false. Here's where our type specifying extension did. I should have probably put a breakpoint in there too. That's not where I need to go. So I'm going to add one for next time. So type entity query. Let's put one in here. Okay. So is always, I lost track of where I am. So we have everything is what I would expect right now. And now we need to figure out why this returns not null. So we're going to step in. Node is not a function call. It is a method call. So this type specifier, specifying types in condition, this node, determine context. Method called on type. It's called on this type. Oh, okay, so this is the original type. So the original type here is the content entity query type with accessCheck false, because the accessCheck is mutating or is creating a side effect with that object. So here, this is a standard entity query without accessChecks. That is what the value is here. After accessCheck is called, that's going to have a side effect to the object to trip a flag. And that's what we're trying to have static analysis simulate. So let's get back to here. So method called on type, we have that type. It gets the reflection, parameters acceptor, resolve function variant, parameters return type. Return type is false because I wonder if it got into our dynamic return type there. All right, let's just, here's the return type. Yeah. So specify types and condition. I went through that and I kind of forgot where I was, honestly. So let's back up a little bit. Specify types. Let's close out of here. So impossible check. So we did find specified type. Node call. Or if node is function call. It's not. So we ended up in here. Specify types and condition. Which brought us to the site. Okay. That brought us to the extension where return type is false. But since we're called, we're creating a new version. Context, type specifier context. I wish I understood this. Create truthy. Like, I have no idea what this is supposed to be. And I wonder if that's the issue. All right, so roll over. So we're in find specified type, specified types, sure types, query, true. So it's going to return, it returns the true. And sure types. All right, so yeah, I've been through this before. Sure types, if self type is specified, treat PHP docs as certain argument type. Result type is sure. Results. Binary logic registry is true. Yeah. So it's certain. Result is always. Okay. Is always is equal to true. Okay. That I don't under. Okay. So it's saying it will always be something. But that was the case beforehand as well. I don't understand the difference here. So let's see. It's got to be in this type specifier context, but specify types. Let's see what else is calling it. Reflection class. Specify types. Because a string create. This is the part where it's hard to follow in here because it's very long. So we have the expression. We have the type. We have the context. Oh. That's context is right there. That's where I screwed up. I bet that's it. Overwrite. So let's copy. I'm going to copy from the example. So I didn't know what I was doing, apparently. Or I didn't have good enough tests. So let's rerun. I'm going to debug it again. Let's just run the debugger and see. I'm hoping that was just a little bit of an oversight on my end, and we're fixed. If that's the case, I'll be extremely happy. Because I wasn't expecting to get. I was only thinking to get one of these done. Not both. All right. So as always, put a breakpoint here. Let's play. Context. So what is the context here? Value 3. Registry. No idea. 3. That's all bitwise operators, so I have no clue. Let's play. Is always is true. Son of a... Oh, wait, hold on. No, never mind. It's still... All right. So let's see. Is it... Why? Create specified types. Why would the default type be fine? See if there's I'm going to search for this in the organization. It's not going to show up. Code. There we go. Code, because we don't want repositories. Nothing in there. So let's look at the code. Insertion chain specifying. I just got to find examples of it because I don't think I'm doing it right. Like, I don't think this is the right way because when it's just the default return type, it's fine. So I'm assuming it's got to be the way that I implemented it. So specify types. So that merge args colon type. Types. Where does it even default the types to in this? So, oh, right there. So this requires going to the assert helper. So I'm going to hold off on that. Neon. Oh, Symfony has it. So let's go into Symfony. And also everything that I've seen requires reading arguments. And this doesn't account for the arguments. So that's where I'm like, I don't know. So service type specifies extension. It's factory. Let's do Service type, where is that at? Type Symfony. Let's get back to the main branch though. Source type Symfony. Let's read this. Specify types. If not, is set args helper create marker node. Arg type. Let's get args, arg type. This type specifier. So that's just it. So is it because it's not dynamic, so it's always returns the same thing? Is that why? I'm not understanding why this is always. All right, so we stepped through it. So let's get back to here. So we've walked through it once, and I'm going to try to understand it again. So is always find specified type. So specified types. If specified type should overwrite, don't validate types on overwrite. So we could fix it by overwriting, but I don't see anything here choosing to do so automatically. It's false, and maybe that's the case. Maybe it should because we want to, but so we have the sure types, sure not types. Root expression is not equal to null. If is specified, so what is the root expression? We do specified types get root. What sets this? Private root. So sure types, not sure types, overwrite. Expression is null. Let's look at this create. So this would do instance of expressions. It creates for the expression. Where does it in here? Specified types. Root. The function call, method call. So there should always be a root expression. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Let's dive back through. I just want to make sure that it seems like setting true for overwrite is the, like, it just, that's how you should do it. But I want to make sure. So assert not int. It's like there. A lot of it in PHP unit, I think, would be it. So type, context, negate. So root expression. All right, is null, but node method call. All right, so there is no root expression. Results. So yes, so for each, there's no, if count results is equal to null, it's not null because, let's just, like, I know this logic works. And there's reasons why it works. So self is specified. So there'd have to be no sure types returned. There'd have to just be like no results. So let's go change this to true. I don't even like this. This should be, I don't even know about that one, but this should never happen. So let's run the test. See, I don't know if I like this or not. Like, it fixes it, but I'm very concerned because I don't know of anything that calls this. It's not equal to null. It gets the args. New method call. We looked at that. Argument type. Service type. Again, that. Oops. That didn't render before I closed it. Nope. Well, I guess the best way that I can do it is if I, here, let's git commit, wait, hold on, PHP vendor, let me run phpstan. I should get it pushed up and let the CI do the job. AV, overwrite specified types for accessCheck type specifier. Origin 508. Get a PR create. Oh, I forgot to say that it fixed. 508. Edit fixes 508. All right. So let's see where else this is used. Is empty type extension. First union with. Yeah, I don't get why is this not working? Like it returns the same. Or at least it seems to be always returning the same. Or it's because there's only one type. There's not multiple types. Right? Is that the issue? Specified types, returns. Let me just double check this. So, where's it? Is always. That's it. Tip. Add tip. Treat. No, that's not what I want. So, it goes into here. Results is super type of. Maybe. Results is super of. Create yes and. So, if it's maybe, it returns null. So, what happens is it always returns the same thing. So it doesn't it's so same because the type never changes. Like in this case here, so sure types specified if it was maybe, it would return null. But treat doc types as certain. Otherwise, this is native type. Argument type is super of. So if this super of returned maybe, it would get back null. So I'm actually going to put a breakpoint there and rerun through it. Although I guess it gets skipped. Yeah, let me stop that because it's going to get skipped. So let's change this to false. And then I'm going to debug it and see. Oh, so last week we solved that bug of it being false positives. They're mostly solved, and it was via this handling. So the last remaining issue was calling query access without it being chained to the previous query. Well, at least there's one more with type properties, but that's a pain. But last week we solved this issue. The unfortunate part is this is causing the impossible type check to fail, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. So essentially it's saying that like that method will always return true despite what you pass in for an argument, which is true. And I think I mentioned this before. It comes down to the fact that we have a binary um, check. It's, we have entity storage type, and it's either with or without access. I don't even know where'd it go. Entity query, here it is. So we have the entity query type, and it's with or without access check. But really what this needs is, it's like, has access check is about if that was called or not. So it needs to be like, what, like, flagged for like access check called, then also if that access check is true or false. And I think if we had that, those extra states, we could return that based off the argument. Like, yes, it has access check called, but access check is disabled. I think we could harden that. Really, it should be, to do read the arg for true or false, and the returned type should also know that. Return should track that access check was called and if it's enabled or disabled. So that would, I think that would solve this. Because right now it is always going to return that same type. It's not going to return two different types. But that's where I want to debug wherever I had my debugger going. 1 second. Shoot. In here is always. Yeah. So we have no root expression. Excuse me. And we have an array of sure types, but the idea was to see like what happens here at line 228. Oh, then the debugger is there. So we have argument type is content entity query type with access check false. And the result type is it with true, which means that it is a super type. Now I always get it flip-flopped in my head of what super type does. So let's step in. Compound type, class name. No. This description. So these should be different. So they are different, right? Like they have different descriptions. One is with, one is without. We fixed this. This was actually a bug before, and that got fixed by extending the cache description. So let's just transform result. That doesn't seem to do anything. Okay. So that class name. There we go. So if the class names are the same, it's a yes. And because they all are query interfaces. So it's always a yes, which means the result is always yes because the interface itself is always the same. So this is not fixed. So let's just say we have to overwrite the result because I don't know. I'm not even going to document. I should document it for my future self. So let's go. Because the original type and the return type are considered query interface, phpstan does not see this as having different results that causes the method to be considered is always built by specifying, yeah, to do this mess by specifying true to overwrite. It skips this problem. I don't know. Skips that problem. I'm gonna try to document it for myself, but I'm gonna get back to the rule. So is always find specified type. I want to see where this is used, because I think why I set false before is I thought it would have more damaging side effects. But I should actually see. So here, it's like here, if it should it assigns versus adds the type. I think this is where I looked at it and it was just fine. So did I push this right? I sure did. If I do, that just adds a comment. So let's see why this failed. PHP unit, what test failed? And it broke other tests. Cool. Or wait a second. Yeah. So overwriting it broke those tests. But let's go review those tests. So entity query has access check test with data set for 396 A3. Let's look here. Yeah, that shouldn't have a bug, but look at here, line 28. That caused it to break. That's so weird. And I wish I even understood why or how. Same with 496. And what's in here? Wait. Oh. Yeah, because we did the entity access check rule. So by fixing the impossible type, it broke this one. It actually broke our check rule. Which maybe that means our check rule needs to be improved. So let's put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to rerun this just to get a good baseline again. It's whack-a-mole. I want to see what the type is. Okay, so everything passed except for that one instance. And I don't know what was unique about these again. So 396 A3 and 496. I don't know why. So this is just because it's big, right? Like it's huge. That breaks. And 496. And this is what we were testing against in our other tests. So let's go debug the simpler one. Which this is actually getting really hard to. Well, let me scroll down. So let's do the debug and see what the return type is. It's going to be entity execute. So it runs on execute, but something is do we need to change everything to be type specifying. We have dynamic return type extensions for this. And I wonder if now I'm going to have to add one here as well. So type. What is our type? Without accessCheck. So let's look at rule entity execute without dynamic return type execute. So let's put a breakpoint here and rerun it, and I'm going to see what we get back. But I guess then that means I also need to go into query. Is it really from the type spec? So we have this here. So we have the access type, then we have accessCheck dynamic return type. Here. Now where I'm at. So execute var type, content entity query, accessCheck is false. So it came back with false, and that's why it's going to say that it's without. So stop. We're going to rerun it again. I set some more breakpoints to try to track down when this gets lost. Because we have a dynamic return type, which is what works when we have chained methods. And then we have the type specification. And I wasn't sure if these were going to conflict or not, but last time I worked on this, we needed both. But now I'm changing the override from true to false. So, all right, we're in our return type, var type. So with accessCheck. All right, so we're returning this. Let's look at this. Let's look at it. Resolve type should be accessCheck true. All that. So where are we now? Now we're at the type specifying. So we have the return type, which is false. It was true. Wait, oh. So that's one problem. This lives. Wait. Shoot. Okay. We should have had this without, but it's because it's getting from the original return type, which, no, that should have been. Oh, this is right. They live side by side. Or they like it gets the dynamic return type, but it's not available in here. So like if we did method reflection, variance, we got the first variant, parameters, return type. It's not going to be from the other, what do you want to call it? The return type extension. So return type, I just want to see if anything in here has what I need. Parameters, dummy parameters. Block. Nope. It's not going to be in. Yeah. Okay. So, unless it's in the scope, resolve types. So here, if we look at the scope, it's resolved. It's already been resolved. Is there a way that we can look it up? Okay. So we know that it's been resolved. And this return type isn't reusing what's available. So then we return the types. If I skip over specified types, scope factory creates, and who knows what. Specify it. Yeah, where does this get used? I just see it adding to them, but not. It's not pushing anywhere. Oh, well, there's none. Specified types. Should not overwrite. Well, we were in. Oh, there it goes. It modifies the scope. That's the one thing that changed. Before it did add type to expression, and then it did assign expression. If type specification is sure. Yeah, shoot. So it is this overwrite, this assign expression that is causing things to break versus the adding to the expression. So, okay, so we have, yeah, we know it's correct from that point. But here, if we could get scope, I think I look, the scope doesn't have, it's like get parent scope. No, get variable type has constant, get the reflection. We don't need the reflection. Get type. If we could do that, maybe. Where are we? So we are here. So let's look back at the node. There. Query. Let's do a test. Scope. Get type. Node. What does it need? It needs an expression, which is not this. What error is this giving me? Because I'm not doing a. Yeah, it is an expression. Okay. Test. So let's do test 1, 2. So we have the var, which is an expression. The args itself, that's the boolean. Let's rerun it. Because the problem might be the return type. And we know with accessCheck, it's not the return type. It is going to return itself, so it should be the type from node var. Maybe. But yeah. Maybe that will be it. But then it will always be true because we still have to do the overwrite. So that's not going to work. So test 1 is true. Test true is false. So stop. Let's do query type equals this one. And then maybe I should look back at this type specifier again for the expression. No, yeah, because we want to change the var. We want to change like the value of query. So let's debug this again, figure out where we are. So I guess I may not be fixing this as fast as I thought. Well, too good to be true. is empty. Let's look at this. Oh, actually, is empty should be good. So first method call, constant Boolean type, last false, union with. So that's interesting. Maybe. So query type, true. We're just passing along. This is basically passing along our dynamic return type extension. Or duplicating it. So execute var type. It's false. But if we change this to false, to not overwrite it, let's see what happens. Yeah, and it's weird because we're not getting that breakpoint hit. Thanks for hanging out, and hope you enjoyed any of the rabbit holing. Have a good night. All right, so we're back to here. We're not going to overwrite, and now it's just not working at all. Cool. All right. Well, I guess one thing that we did change. I changed more than I should have, and I should have run this slower. I passed the context and the overwrite. So let's go ahead and let's trim it back and just run the test. So I changed the context to be inherited. So let's roll back a bunch of these changes. All right. One, if I run this, it's going to fail. So these are the changes. The changes I made, and it went from the truthy response to context, which I have no idea what these values are because it's all bit masks. So let's debug. I'm going to go back to debugging it. No, let's just run it. I'm going to run it and just see what happens. If it has to do with the context. Because it passed without the context. Let's debug and see what the context value is. Because what can it be? It's truthy or falsy. Null or null, negate. Wish I knew what this was intended for. So maybe I should actually look for usages of that. Because here it passes in the context. It says constant type, first union with. Assertion chain, no. Query builder, sure, why not? Let's see. Oh, it went back in time. So is truthy is false. What is it? Context, the value is null. Oh. So it's null. Is method supported? The context is null. This does truthy, so let's try that. Oh, so here they actually overwrite it as true. So what if, okay, let's go back. Let's go back. All right, so before I ran the test and it worked, or it passed with the overwrite, but I changed the context. I made the context be inherited. I actually should go back here. If anything, new specified types. Actually, let's do. Yeah, in this case, if it's not anything, it should. So it passed. Here, it passed. The original tests are passing with that. It was the context. But what I need to test now is the impossible call rule. And this should fail. And it should fail because I didn't put back overwrite true. Okay, now if I go back in and I change this to be true for overwrite, like they have here. Oh, excuse me. Now that should pass. Which failed here again. Entity access. So if I rerun this whole test again, we should get a pass. And we do. Awesome. So get def. I need to be context must be truthy while overwriting. That did it. So now this makes a little bit more sense, or not makes sense, but this query builder is something that we should use for conditions, I feel like. Or we can use for conditions. So return type, get return type, if return type instance of mixed. There's a lot of stuff in here, but it just while no other type. Yeah, so this, if we had more like conditions, I guess. Like when we have I was trying to find the right words for it. When we have all these nested conditions here, I think like that's where we could use like the query builder type specifying extension approach. But we don't really have the same concept of query builder in Drupal. All right, so that's one change. So this basically says we should never get here, so it's just going to return that there's no specified types. It's better than this random guess it was doing before. So now with access type truthy and true, hopefully it passes. It looks like it's going to, which is awesome. So I will get this done before I sign off on the stream, because I usually try to get these to just be 2 hours, and got 20 minutes left. And this looks like it'll be a success, and then I can tag and sign off. And that, I think this unburies like quite a bit of debt, so I can start working on some features, or just other issues that have been lingering a bit. But the main thing was to try to nail this access check stuff. Because it was just the access check change from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10 was kind of disruptive, and yeah, something that was impossible to scan for. Sweet, and I hit my follower goal of 220. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to bump that up to 2:30. That's what Twitch says I should do. Awesome. All right, so we gotta wait for this one. These 2 jobs to finish. Oh, shoot. There goes the build integration. All right, well, I'm gonna see if there's anything else I can triage. So I know entity checks for queries are only required for content entities. This should go in. Fix possible return types and access result with a stub. This seems pretty fun because we can do conditional return types and make access result classes a little bit more easily stubbed out, or their return types. And PHP doesn't have a concept of a sealed class, but I also want to write a rule. So sealed class, to back up, as I just said that, and I know it took me a while to get it. In Drupal, we have access result interface, but even though there's an interface, Drupal really only works with access result allowed, forbidden, and neutral. Which this is actually wrong, because if allowed if is false, it will return neutral and not forbidden. So, there's logic in here that needs to be fixed. Yeah, because it says it returns access result, but access result is an abstract class that they all implement. So it'd be nice to improve the developer experience around access results, which, if anybody is curious about what any of that word soup means, I'll share a link in the chat. I recently wrote a blog post on my website called that explains the trinary states of access control there. All right, one more test remaining. All right, boom. Merge it, and we get a tag, and then prepare to sign off. Let's go to code. Release is wide. Thought there used to be there it is. It's up there. So let's draft a new release. New tag. 9. Let's generate the release notes. And publish. Awesome. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Hope you maybe learned a little bit of things, or just learned how I do debugging and try to learn how systems work. Because by and far, I don't know how phpstan works into the hood anymore. Maybe a year or two ago I did, but it's become way too advanced that I don't know. But using things like xdebug helps me step through and just see how things are running to solve bugs like this without being a subject matter expert. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.